Okay. Well, I am super excited to have Julia with us today. So, the reason I found you is I first saw your TikTok that was not We're Addicts. Well, I just saw that one the other day. What was the huge one? What went to like 2 million? Or We're in Recovery. It was that.
Yeah, We're Addicts in Recovery. Yeah. I think it's titled We're Addicts.
Okay. So you guys, obviously I'm going to have Julia's TikTok linked in the show notes. You have to go follow her. But the first thing that I saw was this hilarious take on the trend, We're Addicts in Recovery. And as soon as you and your friend started talking, I was like, dude, these chicks are so real. Like everything you said was hilarious. And then I went to the comments to say it was funny. And someone was like, you don't know about addiction. You're too pretty is what they said. They were like, you're pretty. Like
you don't
these
beat
girls
up
don't
enough.
know.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Yeah, you don't like beat up enough. And then I got in an argument in her comments without ever having had met her, where I was like, no, they absolutely know. You obviously don't know. And the Hep C one and the Sugar Daddy one, I think that was hers.
Yeah.
That was hilarious. And I was like, they absolutely know. So anyways, I'm so glad that we connected and that you were willing to do the show. Welcome to Chasing Heroin. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you. I'm super, super honored to be here. It's like, you want to interview little old me? Okay.
I know. I was like, I hope she wants to.
Oh my God. Yeah. Totally.
But yeah. Okay, good. So what is your sobriety date? Because you have 5 years now. I was telling her when we first jumped on, she's got like this angel little like baby face. And I thought, is she like 25? I thought she had 5 years. And you do. You have 5 years. What's your sobriety date?
8/26/18.
Okay. And I know that you've got, I don't know the details, but I know from watching your content that you have a crazy story. I can just tell. And that's what we love around here because now you have 5 years. Your home is beautiful. Like it's decorated so nice, you know? And it's things like that that I'm sure you did not think you would ever, like, you've got live plants back there. Like you take care of plants.
I know.
You know?
And a whole human.
Yeah, and a whole human. Right, yeah, and that part. I guess that's more important than baby. She has a daughter. And I'm like, look at your plants. I'm so proud of you. Okay, so let's get to the baby and the plants. Where are you from? And tell me about your family and growing up.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm from Seattle, Washington. I grew up in a little town called Bothell. Pretty normal family. I mean, normal. We look pretty normal on the outside. I was mostly raised by my mom. My dad left when I was 15. So after that, I think that's when, let me back up a little bit. So both my parents are from the Midwest. So they're from like tiny towns in Nebraska. So like my mom was raised on a farm. So like imagine that. And then they moved to Seattle and then they had me, this like really hypersensitive, feelings, really creative child that probably had like undiagnosed ADHD. I had anxiety so young. I used to call it like the feeling. Like I didn't know what it was. Like it was anxiety. But anyway, so my parents had no idea. I just think they were super out of their realm with me as their kid. And they did the best they could. But, you know, like my emotional needs were often, I just think it was a struggle. It was a struggle in my house. Connection wasn't there. Missed stuff like that. My dad is an alcoholic. He was really good when I was a kid, little kid. And then as I got older, we just started to fight and the fighting turned super vicious. I was really rebellious, really stubborn. His drinking progressed and kind of like my house culture fell apart. So 15 was when he left the picture and my parents separated. And I would say, like, if I look back at my history, that's really when everything just went, that was like the beginning of the end for me. It was 15 years old because I no longer had that in male energy in my house that could kind of keep me in check. I walked all over my mom. So everything just blew up after that.
Do you have any siblings?
Yes, I have a little sister. She's 3 years younger than me. She's not an addict. She's wonderful. One of my best friends today.
So when you say the feeling, that's so interesting to me and actually intuitive that you called it that when you were a little kid. What situations when you were little, like what age do you remember first feeling like that when you were like 5 or 6? Or when do you remember first feeling that?
Yeah, so it's interesting you asked that just because I hadn't thought about the feeling until recently because it got brought up in therapy because we're exploring my childhood again. And I remembered this. So I have like two distinct memories. So my mom said it happened constantly and I would just cry and just not. I would wake up in the morning and open my eyes. I must have been really little, like 5 or 6, because I was still sharing a bed with my sister. And I remember just thinking like, it's a summer day. Like I'm so excited to play. And then like the feeling would hit me, and it was just,
wow.
Yeah. So we're kind of exploring in therapy. My therapist is like, what happened at that? And I don't know. I have no answer. It could have been so many things.
Interesting.
So yeah, my mom did not know what to do with it or how to help.
Did your sister have that too back then? Do you know?
So I now have diagnoses for this stuff. She also had a lot of like OCD, anxiety symptoms, but the way she dealt with it is like way different. They say like there's typical family roles in like a dysfunctional family, and like kids either do one extreme where they try and control everything by like being a really good student, doing every sport under the sun, like being as good as they can, or the opposite, which is where you like combust and you're violent and loud and volatile and a bad kid. So those are like our roles. So she definitely had a lot of like stuff that was like perfectionism. She picks her fingers, but she never went down the drug route.
So she was the good one. She played sports and did well in school. Yeah. That was her role.
Yes.
And then you kind of combusted. That was your role?
Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting because usually it's the older sibling that takes on the quote good behaviors.
So often Allie and I have talked about that.
What does she think?
Well, she thinks, we both discussed the fact that she's often felt like taken on the older sister role for me. So it's an odd dynamic.
That's interesting. And the reason I ask is because I wonder if, since you don't remember anything specifically happening, because I think so much of this is genetic. And the more people that I interview, the more that's reinforced to me, because stories sometimes, no family is perfect, right? There's always some weird dynamics, but some families are like, like mine was pretty good. I say that a lot. And I ended up like this crazy heroin addict, but my brother didn't. Same thing with you. And so I think sometimes too, especially at such a young age, to feel that kind of overwhelming feeling is, I think, sometimes just part of our
DNA,
genetic makeup. So when did you start using any drugs? Was it before your dad left or afterwards?
Yeah. So my dad had wine in our basement. He made wine like as a hobby. So we had
hold on, not like Pruno, like good wine.
Like he made wine and like was hoping to sell it someday to like stores.
Okay, so like good wine, not like Pruno.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
But wine takes a long time to cure. So I'm like a little 12, 13-year-old, like opening up bottles that still needed to sit for probably like 4 more years. So.
Oh no. Yeah. I'm drinking like poison, basically. Oh my God.
Probably. So my drinking and experimenting with drinking started before he left. Around the age of 12 was when I started just dabbling here and there.
Were there any consequences from that? Did you ever get like caught from that the first couple of times? Or do you remember how it felt when you would drink the first time? Do you remember the first incident of that?
I think the first time I ever drank, it was just like a couple beers and it was giggly and kind of innocent and fun. But the first time I drank hard alcohol was an absolute disaster. I snuck out of my house, met up with my 2 girlfriends at like the elementary school next door to my house, and we finished a 5th. So I don't remember how I got home. All I know is I woke up on my bedroom floor, like surrounded by vomit, or it was next to me. And there was like, I had cut my toe open. And so I had left, I had snuck out from the basement window. So I crawled back into the basement window, and I guess there was like a blood trail, like that all the way up my house into my bedroom. And I just remember my parents being like, what the But in my family, we didn't talk about stuff. Nothing was addressed, So I think they knew. Obviously,
so they didn't say anything about that?
I think my dad made me do chores the next day and just kind of kept looking at me and like rolling his eyes. But no, I mean, they definitely tried. They definitely tried to keep me grounded, keep me in the house, but I wasn't going to do any of that. So,
were you close to him?
I would say I am closer to him now than I've ever been. And we are not very close even now. He lives in...
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but like in the sense that so much has been forgiven, and I know that he's just a broken man. He did the best he could. He's no longer like a parent. He's just like a guy that I have compassion for. But no, our relationship was really broken. And I don't even remember feeling like fatherly anything from him. So, which I have had to grieve most of my life, you know?
Yeah. So where did he go when he left? Did he get remarried or did he just move somewhere?
Yeah, so he'd been having an affair for a couple of years and he immediately went and moved in with her. And they are now married and they live in Portugal. They're retired and they live in Portugal.
In Portugal?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he has made a bunch of money through the stock market and is doing really well for himself. So,
oh, that's so annoying.
Well, we're allowed to go visit.
Right? Isn't that kind of annoying?
It's annoying because...
Oh, you are? Okay.
We are.
Okay.
It's annoying. I don't know how much this will never get back to him, but it's annoying because like he fought my mom tooth and nail on child support. And she's just a nurse, like trying to raise 2 girls.
Sure.
And he like has all this money. So he's definitely...
That's so annoying.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I meant because I feel like that kind of happens. But I'm glad that you go see him. Does he pay for you to go see him?
Yeah, we're just allowed to. The invitation's open.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
But no, I'm not ready for that.
Would he pay for that?
I have no idea.
Would he fly you there, do you think? Okay.
I have no idea.
That would be the real test. If he flies you there, then cool. You know, but if he's like, because like my dad did well, but he won't fly me home or anything. He's like, yeah, if you want to come see me, let me know. Yeah. I'm like, dude, all right, whatever. Man.
Right.
Like,
I know.
You know. And he's been like that for a really long time, you know, and I'm like, all right, cool. Save up for a ticket. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So anyways.
No, I feel it. I feel it.
15. You know, so he leaves.
Yeah.
And then what does the progression look like for you with drinking and using? And were there like boys in the mix at this point? What did you do academically? What did your grades look like?
Okay. So I always really struggled in school. I think I fell behind really young and did not ask for or know how to receive the support that I needed. So I think, you know, we're all kind of searching for identity during that time. And I found so much of an identity in like the party scene, the scene where kids were getting fucked up. So I just sought that out really hard. I made it through 1 year of high school before I left. And I missed too many days to go back. They wouldn't let me back in. So I tried a couple other attempts at completing high school through like an alternative school. Yeah. So I never finished high school. And I think during that time was when I had really started experimenting with like cocaine, ecstasy. The idea of needles was introduced to me around that time. And I was just always experimenting with like injecting cocaine, doing stuff like that. And that was like bad, you know, like I had my party friends, but even they were like, we don't shoot cocaine, like you crazy bitch. But I loved that. And so I would have to like, I'm already like developing multiple personas, you know, sneaking out of parties at 2 a.m. to go to this one guy who will help me shoot up cocaine because I'm like 16 years old. I don't know how. And I was not afraid. The first time I actually injected heroin, I was 15 and a boy did it for me. So that was not my first dance with opiates, but it was my first introduction to heroin. And then I didn't touch it again for a couple years. I didn't, you know, I loved it, didn't love it, but he just offered and I was like, sure, let's do this.
Okay. So when you quit school, did you stay at home? Were you allowed to still live in your house? Did you have to get a job? Like how did your mom handle that when you said, I'm not going anymore?
Yeah. So oh my gosh, she tried so hard. So I was running away at this time. She brought me to court because I was not going to school and not following her rules at all. And I think the whole time it was kind of like we were always under the assumption that like Julia was trying, like she was going to get back into this or she was going to try this. And I was always like making an effort, but not really following through. Eventually told me I had to get a job. So I got hired at a coffee stand and I was 17 at that point.
Okay. How did you meet the guy that first gave you heroin? What was his role in his life? And then where were you guys when that happened? I want like the details on that if you remember it all.
So I had my boyfriend at the time. His name was Danny. And we were just like Bonnie and Clyde little gremlin children, just always like running around. And he actually lived at my house for a while. And he actually was a really sweet guy. My mom ended up like totally loving him. But so we were hanging out at this older guy's house who's probably such a fucking loser. But, you know, you're 15. And so you don't really know. He was living in his like mom's apartment. So we were all drunk one night. My boyfriend's passed out. I know this older guy does heroin. And so I see him going in and out of the bathroom a lot. So I just went into the bathroom and was like, hey, I want to try it. Will you shoot me up? And so
Wow.
I don't know. I don't remember if he took convincing. I think he was probably like, no at first, but I mean, who knows? He probably gave me a tiny amount, but I remember feeling it, feeling the warm blanket sensation, and then just going back to my sleeping boyfriend and laying down and feeling like $1,000,000, you know?
I wonder what made you, and it sounds like you've done a lot of work on yourself in the years that you've been sober, so maybe you know. That's really scary to do heroin. I was 31 when the guy I was with, I found out he was doing heroin and he was only smoking, and I was terrified. At 15, what do you think made you unafraid and curious?
Dude, I've never thought about that in reference to that specific memory, because I guess when I think of my heroin addiction, I don't think of that memory. It didn't start there.
Right.
You know, because it wasn't around me. It was just like this one guy. I have let me think. What was it? Gosh, I don't know. I was just so hungry to try as many drugs as I could and to get as messed up as I could. I just really had a serious drive to do that, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. So the desire was for the feeling of being fucked up, you think? Because like I had a little bit of a desire to be bad, right? Like I knew doing cocaine was bad and I'd been such a good kid. Okay, that was part of it for me. But so it was partially the feeling for you and partially like the being bad, like actively, consciously.
I think so. Yeah. I definitely was like, even though I was raised in a kind of a dysfunctional family, we were very sheltered still. And so I sought out, like my first best friend was like this girl that had been in the system, and her mom was a heroin addict, and she was very much like a kid that got in trouble at school, and she became my best friend. And so I think I just, really was like, I felt like everyone was a step ahead of me and I wanted to just try all the things and be cool, probably.
Yeah. That's interesting. Okay. So you do heroin that first time, but it doesn't like kick off. You're working in a coffee shop. You're living at home. And then what do things start to look like from there in terms of use and your life and where you go and like with work and everything?
Yeah. So I really had no idea what I was doing during this time. If I'm being really honest, I think this is when I really developed like the dual personality, like who I was presenting to the world and like what was really going on. Because I always would have like all these plans and like I looked like a normal kid and I became like the assistant manager of the coffee stand and blah, blah, blah. But in the back of my head, like I don't know, I guess I just didn't have a lot of desire to do anything with my life. And I was really getting caught up in the drug scene. So I started smoking heroin and that progressed really quickly. I had a boyfriend, we started smoking heroin. And then I would say the next 2 years from 17 to 19 were just me trying to work with a heroin habit of smoking heroin until I eventually got fired and entered my first treatment center. And that started my whole journey of trying to get clean. So I got clean in that treatment center at 19 and it didn't stick until this last time. So it's been a long road.
Okay. So first treatment center at 19 and then you actually finally stopped at what age? 26 or 27? How old was it?
I'm 31 now, 26, 18. I think I was 26. Yeah, or 27.
Okay, all right.
Was I 27?
So 7 years of, okay.
No, I was 26. Yeah. I'm like math counting on my fingers.
26. I'm mathing. So do you remember when you were a kid, did you have anything that you wanted to be when you grew up or not really?
Yeah, I wanted to be a photojournalist. Big time. Photography was always...
Oh, that's interesting. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, I really want to be a photojournalist. I have a photography business now that's pretty successful. And so...
Oh, you do?
Yeah, so I made that happen in recovery.
Oh, that's so cool. So you're like doing it.
Yeah, in a way.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not like journalism. Photojournalism is kind of a dying art because of like media. It would have to be a little different. But yeah, I really wanted to do that. I wanted to... something with writing. You know, I love to write, so...
Okay. So your first treatment center at 19, and then what do those next years look like? Like treatment, sober living, homeless, treatment, sober living, like what are the patterns in that time? Because this is in my experience, and again, I have a feeling we have very similar stories. Once you're on the treatment road, you are learning, But sometimes that's when everything really gets worse for a little while because you're meeting all the people and you're learning more drugs and you're in the world where like sometimes you're homeless and sometimes you're in sober living and everybody knows. Like, is that when things start to get crazier for you? Because I know you start doing different hustles and stuff like that.
I would say this is going to be the interesting part for me to tell, because when I speak, in the 12-step world or like speak at treatment centers, I always like really gloss over this time because, I'm just like, I went to treatment 22 times, the end, now this is what I'm doing now. But yeah, so the first treatment center I went to was life-changing. It was only 3 weeks and I fell in love with it. And I really wanted to be sober. I really did. And I moved into an Oxford house and immediately met like the really cool young people crowd in AA in Seattle, thought they were the bee's knees. Like, you guys are so cool and everyone's spiritual and like, the guys are cute and all the things. But I mean, gosh, I was 19, Yeah, I tried to go to school during that first. So I was sober 11 months the first time. I remember that felt like a lifetime. Like, I was so proud of those 11 months. My family was so happy. I started developing a relationship with my sister again. I mean, there's so many beautiful things happened. And I tried to go back to college. And now I know I have ADHD or ADD, which has like always been a huge barrier. So I went to college and I do really well for a period of time. And then I always get too overwhelmed and stuff piles up and I can't do it. So I moved out of my Oxford house and I started college in the same week. I was going to move home so I could just be a student. And during that week, my mom and my sister left on a trip. So I was alone at my mom's house and I was really like trying to study. It was just like English 101. And I remember like I could not focus. I could not take in this information. Now I have the tools to deal with shit like that. Like, it doesn't even seem like, why was that such a big deal? But I think I had so much left to heal and so much shame. So my brain just went like, do something that's going to make you feel better. So I called the ex-boyfriend. Was just like, hey, you want to come over? You know what I mean? Just hang out, see how good I'm doing. And within like 2 hours of him being at my mom's house with me, I was smoking heroin again. So yeah, so that was really catastrophic.
So I have a couple of questions. The 3-week program, what about it made you fall in love with it? Were you introduced to 12-step at that time, I'm assuming?
Yes. So Sundown and Branch is like one of the best treatment centers in the nation. It's just it's pretty old school. The counselors are really intense. You're in group therapy like 4 hours a day. I don't know. I think I just had never been around people that were owning so much of their truth and being so real and so honest. I met my sober best friend in that treatment center, who's still one of my best friends to this day. And we've both had our journeys. So I think it was like the first time I maybe really connected with people in a long time. And was just like, whoa, I'm alive again. This is so amazing, Did
you go to a detox first or did they detox you there? And what was that like, your first detox?
Well,
I feel like that's always a fucking shock.
Yeah, I didn't know what it was going to be like. I never detoxed off heroin in those whole 2 years. And so I just went in. I was like, it's going to be fine. I didn't sleep for 8 days. Like, it was so fucked. I'm like in group, just like, dying. Yeah.
Did they do a Suboxone taper or just cold turkey?
Yeah, Suboxone wasn't really a thing then. It was in 2011. And so it was, but like not in the treatment detox world.
No, it wasn't. Yeah, not right. So so it was just cold turkey.
I got clonidine. That's what I got, clonidine.
Okay, which doesn't do shit.
No, it's a blood pressure medication.
Right?
So, but you know what?
It's a blood pressure medication, I know.
But my habit wasn't, you have to remember too, like I was just smoking it. my habit was probably like $20, $30 a day. It wasn't nothing like how it progressed years later. So I feel like I've had way worse kicks since.
Yeah, for sure. And you got your GED at some point because you were starting to go to college.
Yes, I did get my GED during that time, those 11 months.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're smoking heroin with him.
Yeah.
And then what happens next after you relapse with him?
I do what I always do when I relapse, which is I immediately scream and yell at everyone that's sober saying like, I fucked up. Please help me. I don't want to do this anymore. This isn't fun. This is not a good time. I want to get back on it. I told everybody what happened, called my mom. And I think I thought I was just going to be able to bounce right back, But like the obsession was ignited again. And that it takes its own course and I'm just along for the ride. So I went in and out of detox like 4 times over the next couple months. And I finally went to another treatment center for women called Residence 12. So then in 2012, a year of using after, I guess, or I don't know how long, honestly, a couple months, 6 months, I have no idea. But I know in 2012, I went into my second treatment facility. And then that was also a cool experience. At this time, I have a lot of like ego because I like think I know some shit because I had 11 months clean. You know, I'm like, oh, I know the big book. And I'm also just young and dumb. But
yeah, totally.
So I did NA that time and I stayed sober 6 months and then I relapsed again. I don't remember how I relapsed that time. And went to detox again multiple times. The detox nurses really knew me very well. Every time I come back, they'd be like, Julia, you know, I remember there was this doctor at the detox I'd always go to, and I would always wake up and he would just be standing over me. And he was so frustrated with me. He would be like, why can't you get clean? Why do we keep having to treat you? And I would just be like, I don't fucking know. Like, don't ask me that. And he was just like trying so hard to figure me out, you know, and I was such a mystery. But yeah, I just couldn't stay clean.
Were you on your mom's health insurance? How were all those detoxes getting covered?
Yes, I was on my mom's insurance until I was 26, which was the good old days.
Thank God.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
But I went to state detox I guess then.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't think health insurance covered detox until sometime in the Obamacare years.
Okay.
Because I don't think they used to. I never had insurance. And so I never was able to like go that route. But my husband always was able to go to good detoxes. And I've asked him and he's like, yeah, insurance at some point covered it. But you might have gone to a state one because it didn't cover at that time, you know?
Yes. Well, I remember, yeah. And then I started going to treatment out of state and that wasn't covered. So my mom used my college fund, almost all of my college fund, to send me to a year-long facility in California. And that was when I moved to
Oh, wow.
to LA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Where in California? Oh my God, it's in LA?
Woodland Hills.
Okay, so
Not
North LA.
Yeah.
Yeah. But still, you know what I mean? That's like there are detoxes downtown near Skid Row and shit.
Right.
I'm like, oh my, I mean, people do it. People get clean, I guess. So you go to LA for a year?
Yes.
Yeah, you do? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so like, sometimes I start thinking I was a badass addict, and then I think about Skid Row and actual like junkie spots, and I'm like, I was in North County, San Diego. It wasn't that bad. You know what I mean? Like, I knew all the guys. You know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't. There are some really sketchy fucking places to be a homeless girl that is strung out on heroin, and you know, LA and areas of LA is, you know, some
Super
of them. I'm sure
sketch.
Seattle too. There are areas like
LA
that.
is a whole different ball game, though. LA is definitely a different city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you use in LA? So you're there in Woodland Hills for a year, and then what ends up happening? Did you ever use while you lived there?
Yeah, so I ended up staying clean for 6 months after that program. I started working at Cliffside Malibu, which is a treatment center in Malibu, and I stayed clean for 18 months during that time. So this was like the big time. Like everyone finally was like, finally, Julia's clean forever. You know, my mom, my sister flew down on my 1 year. My sponsor gave me the cake, the whole shebang. And I know that one was a pretty big bummer. So after I relapsed from that treatment center, I used in California off and on for a while. I went to treatment 3 more times, various treatment centers. I went to some really, and always like trying. I'm always fucking trying. And I'm always like really like doing the deal while I'm in rehab. Yeah, I just kept getting loaded, kept shooting meth and heroin afterwards.
Dude, I did too. I would like kind of nerd out on the book and stuff. Like I enjoyed speaker meetings. I enjoyed doing step work with my sponsor. I would really listen every time I felt like I had some breakthroughs. Do you remember what took you out after that 18 months? Do you remember what the relapse was?
Yeah, I remember I got a boyfriend. He was a normie, bless his heart. And he only knew me sober. And I just had like this little life set up, you know, but I wasn't really in any of a kind of a community. LA, it's like really easy to get lost in the program. It's so big. Do you know what I mean? Like it was hard to like find an essential group. I mean, I did have a women's home group that I went to every week, but a lot of the women were older than me. Excuses. But what happened was, God, I just remember sitting in my room of the place I was renting and like eating ice cream and not showering and watching Girls, the show, for like 4 days. And I was just probably in a depression, right? Which I've probably gone through that now like 100 times and I don't get loaded over it. I just know how to pull myself out of it. I didn't have those tools yet. And I remember my boyfriend coming over and being like, I've never seen you like this, because I was like a rock climber. I exercised every day. I was working at a treatment center. I was doing all the things, you know? And shortly after that, I drove to, oh God, this is hilarious. So I had a friend whose name was Julia as well, and she had relapsed. So I didn't know anybody that was using in California. I knew she'd relapsed, and I knew that she told me that it was her dealer was like on her Facebook, that she had reached out to him over Facebook. So I went through her friends and I just found the sketchiest looking guy. And I messaged him at 2 a.m. and I was right. It was him. And he was like, come over.
Oh my God.
Yeah, his name was Jimmy. So he was like, come on over. So I like,
what did you say?
I was like, cool.
What'd you say in the DM? Do you remember?
I think I was just like, hey, do you have any dope? You know, thinking like, what do I have to lose?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, come over.
Yeah.
And it was a really specific choice.
Yeah. I remember driving there and like, my brain kept being like, if you pray, you will stay sober. Like, think about your little sister. Think about the look in your mom's eyes when you had your year. And I would just like consciously be like, shut up. Nope. We're not going there. I'm turning this off. I'm turning my conscience off. We're just going to go there. And I had to do that until I had the heroin in my system again. And then it was like, okay. But to get loaded again, now there's so much between me and a relapse. I would really have to do some damage sober before I finally was in a place where I could introduce drugs in my life again. There's just so many safety barriers. So yeah, it was really sad. It was really, really sad.
And I know I had mentioned this on the phone because I want to talk about, because I love you've mentioned several times now, like the tools that you have for ADHD, the tools that you would have in depression to not use, all the safety barriers between you and a relapse. I want to spend some time talking about all of that. You know, as I asked you on the phone, I always do ask for like a couple of stories though, and it's always interesting to me what comes up for you when the person says like, what do I want to share about my using days? And so what did you come up with? What do you got?
Well, so like everything I've said so far, I kind of think is like phase 1 of my addiction. And after this big relapse, we kind of enter phase 2. So phase 2 is like the next, I think it was like 22 to 26, which doesn't seem like a lot of time, but God, it felt like a decade. I no longer was trying to get sober. So it was like you could rob me and take everything from me, the clothes on my back, all my money, leave me in the middle of nowhere, and I was fine. I was not going to call for help. I was going to find a way to keep getting loaded. And that's when I was no longer like, it just changed. Everything changed. I was like we're living in dirty motels. We're living in cars. The cars get impounded. So now we're living on the streets. Things get really dirty. I start selling my body because I needed the security of the fact I needed to always be able to make money. And that was like the only thing I could do that nobody could take from me. And that I wouldn't have to rely on a guy or a boyfriend. It was just like mine to feed my addiction as much as I wanted. So anyways, the story that came up for me was, they're at the very end, I guess.
Well, no. So before we get there, no, because it's really interesting what you just said. So where were you living in your phase 2, 22 to 26? Because man, I did the same thing. I made a conscious choice in 2013 to stop trying at all. I left a sober living and I was like, no, I'm just going to like I'm just going to like do drugs. I didn't use the language, I'm just going to be an addict. I was like, I'm just going to use. I don't want to try to stop. I'm just going to full out use and like make that my life. And I did. I made a conscious choice. Even after having some like recovery in me, I did the exact same thing. Where did you live during those 4 years? And when you say we, do you mean you and a boyfriend? Where were you living?
Yeah. So I did go to treatment like a couple more times and made a couple more failed attempts. And then I was just like, boom, we're fucking done. Like what you just said, I made that conscious choice. Yeah, I had like 2 main boyfriends in my addiction during phase 2. One of them, you know, he made it out and he's doing well. If I ever run into him, I have an amends that I have to make, but I'm not allowed to contact him because it could cause harm. And the other one is Ryan, who I am with today, who's sober with me. So,
oh, okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we met in addiction. And so where was I living? Everywhere, various places. We lived in the car. I mean, lived in the car. The car got wrecked.
But in LA, or did you come back to Seattle?
We drove home. We drove back to Seattle. Yeah. He came and got me at some point.
Okay. How did you meet him?
In a detox. Yeah. He was a detox boyfriend and we fell in love. And we did. I mean, he was my best friend for sure. But I was crazy. At this point, my body's deteriorating. I'm shooting meth and heroin around the clock, just like, you know, how it gets, and losing my mind. So
what did your hustles look like before you moved into sex work? And do you remember what the thought process was? Did someone ask you to do it? Did you go on Craigslist? What did that actually look like?
Yeah. So what happened was, and I've never talked about this so openly, but I feel totally okay to talk about this today.
Is it okay?
It's okay.
Are you sure?
Yeah. I did a pep talk with my girlfriend before this, and I don't have shame about this stuff today. My fear would be I don't want to say anything that could, if the person hears it, it's going to hurt them because I caused so much harm. But I think I'm just going to stick to the facts of what happened. So yeah, I was always trying to sell dope. And I were trying to sell drugs. Gosh, I went through so many dealer boyfriends off and on. Him and I were always kind of off and on. Like he'd try to get clean or I'd try to get clean. You know, we come back together. So we were super down and out. We were staying in a motel. Remember the friend I told you that was my best friend in junior high who was like the bad girl? So her and I reconnected. And of course, we're both junkies at this point. And she was really deep into sex work. So the hustle we had for like a week was we were driving her around to meet John's, and then she would break us off. And I just remember one night I was in the hospital because I don't remember why, something drug related. And I just had such a craving I wanted to feel safe with the amount of money. I wanted to feel secure with money. I was so sick of being sick. And I also I wanted the freedom to be able to do that. I don't know. It was really appealing to me. So I asked Jordan if she would take me on my first date, and she drove me there. She came up to the apartment of this guy and said to him, "I'm going to be downstairs. If you try anything, I will kill you." And I don't remember the actual date itself. I've totally blocked it out. Not that it was traumatic. I just it's not there in my memory. And then I came back and didn't tell my boyfriend at the time. So that secret was kept for maybe like a month. I was able to keep it. Like, how do I have dope? I don't know, you know. And what ended up happening was he found my phone, went through my phone, and he saw all of the conversations of Craigslist. I was on Backpage and doing stuff like that. And it just fucking wrecked him. And so that was that, you know, he was done. I hurt him really bad. And after that, I was alone, and I had me and me. So
did you have a car that you were staying in, or where were you staying at that time?
So I moved into a trap house. Oh, I also had moved in with this guy, Ian, for like 6 months during this time. And he was like crazy. We were crazy abusive. So was I. We were so psycho. He was like an ex-con. And my mom was like, I just remember talking to my mom one time and her being like, "Please don't get pregnant by this man. Like, please don't get pregnant by this man." Oh, he was super old. I ran into him on the streets of Seattle one night and was just like, "Hey, do you have dope?" And he was like, "Yeah. You want to come back to my apartment?" I'm like, "Yeah." And then we moved in together that day. You know what I mean? Oh my God. But anyways.
This is the stuff.
Yeah.
This is the stuff of addicts. But okay, but like, no, dude, there's a level of addict chick that like I am and you are that I fully understand. You listen to Christina, you listen to Sarah, and there's like this level of us that just like works for me. And I just get it. Like I was listening to, there's another addiction podcast that I love. And the guy interviewed this girl, Jess Kent. She's on TikTok. And she's like, and everybody was super mad about her interview and whatever. And one of the reasons they were mad is that she was talking about a guy that she dated. And she was like, yeah, like we were together for a long time. And I remember meeting girls when I was locked up and they would say, oh, he always looked out for me. I mean, he put me in a trunk once, but like, you know, he let me out. And while she was talking, she is like, and she was like saying he's a good guy. And some of the reviews and the criticism was that like, oh my God, he locked someone in a trunk. And I was like, but he let her out. Like sometimes you get locked in a trunk. You know what I mean? Like you might meet a guy and move in with him. I got padlocked in that shed. The doghouse I was in, and the guy locked me in at night. And I'm like, no, but like he was like my good homeboy. It was to protect me, not to hurt me. And there's like this conversation that we understand. You know what I'm saying? Yes. Like that's at that level. And that's like why I have the show. And that's why I kind of ask for details, because I want people to hear that like this happens and we're all on the same page. You know what I mean?
And we can get out of it. And look at us now. Like you can recover.
And we can get out of it. Yes, totally. And we can get out of it and we can totally recover. And nice regular girls with homes and plants and babies had stuff like this happen. And like now they're out. You know what I mean?
Right.
And yeah, that's totally like the whole. But I understand you meeting the guy and like moving in that day, of course, for 6 months.
It's a roof.
I also, also a convict, like they're going to kind of protect you. You think they might not, but seems like they might. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into dating your first convict. You know what I mean? Like it's a whole thing. When you start dating convicts, it's a whole lifestyle, you know? And it's alluring. It's appealing in a lot of ways, those guys, you know? Mm-hmm. But also I fully understand what you just said about wanting the security of the money, because I lived in fear of being sick. I lived in fear of being every day. Like my husband would just get sick sometimes. He would buy pills and come home. Yeah, me neither. And just be done and be sick for a few days and then start trying to hustle while he was sick. And I'm like, no. I was always thinking about the next bag. Always.
Yeah. Exactly.
I totally understand that.
That's cool that you understand. Yes, it was like a level of fear. I was so desperately afraid of being sick. And I already didn't have any of my needs met. Like I already don't have shelter. I don't have basic, regular food. I don't have a shower. So like all those things are like, we're just always trying to get the ability to like have a moment of normalcy. You know what I mean? So I also just always wanted to be able to have, plus like no one could take it away from me. You know what I mean? Like it was all up to me. Like I didn't have to date the dealer. I didn't have to sell the drugs. Like I had the ability to take care of myself with nobody else. And that really, what it did was I turned a corner, I think, because throughout my whole addiction, I don't know if my eyelashes, no, I didn't. Okay. Throughout my whole addiction, I was always like still, I was still like, I had a heart. I was still like, a sweet, like I wanted to still connect and trust people. And of course I never could, but I always tried and all those things. So when I started into the sex work game, I had to shut off a part of my soul that I had never shut off before. And I remember thinking like, I just became cold. I think Christina talked about this and I was like, yes, I had to become somebody totally different. And she could not have empathy and she could not have feelings and nobody could fucking hurt me. I do remember thinking that there was a spark deep, deep down in me that was like, you want to call it spirit, creator, whatever. I remember thinking like that actually can't be put out. Like I will always have this, nothing I'm doing is going to break me, like I'm always going to be whole and complete. I just had to stop feeling. I had to stop giving a fuck about anyone except for myself, like such a selfish place. So.
Yeah. And in that sense, do you mean like feeling any shame about what you were doing or the way that you dealt with dates or the way that you got your date? Like what would that manifest as? Where would you say like, I can't feel this. I need to not be attentive to this. Like what would be an example of that?
Yeah. So I was living all of that. And the fact that I was living, so I started to rent a room in a trap house. Like I legitimately like got a lock for a room and like had my own room in this trap house and like decorated it really cute. The old guy that lived there, like, you know, he rented the room to me, but it was very much a fucking dope house. Like always people in and out, in and out. So I was meeting dates there. So of course I'm in like a really cutthroat world where everyone wants to rob me, talk shit.
Okay.
She's making money. So I couldn't care what anyone said about me. I couldn't care about the dates I was going on. I had to totally dissociate my body in order to have sex with these men. And I think I just stopped. Like I no longer wanted to let anyone in. I did not want to have a best friend. I didn't want to have a boyfriend. I didn't want to connect with human beings. I just wanted money and drugs and to be able to do that until I died, you know, or whatever. Like that was just the goal. So
that's such an interesting way how you put it too. I've never heard anybody say it like that. It was something that no one could take from you. Because for me, I was always getting fucked on hustles. Like I remember this one time I was the lookout while my boyfriend and some other guy were stealing flat screen TVs from inside a model condo that they had left unlocked. And afterwards, the guy took it and we couldn't like get it back. And the whole thing was like our idea and my idea. And we couldn't even get him back. And the guy was like making fun of me. And he was like, what are you, fucking Scarface, Janine? You're going to come get it from me. I just remember he was like talking shit to me on the phone. Or like even my ex, I would do something. It would be my idea. And I would have the dope and he would make me give it to him.
Yes.
And like he would hold it. Yeah.
Yes.
And I couldn't hold it. And it was like mine, man. And I was just constantly getting screwed with deals where I was like trying to steal and sell and you know, do those kinds of things. I was constantly getting screwed. And that's so fascinating what you just said, that as a woman, the ownership of your body was yours. No one could take that. You know what I mean? That was an asset that you always had control over, because I never had control of any of my hustles. You know what I mean? I just really didn't. I had to just hope that my ex would fucking break me off fairly, which he never did. And he wasn't even a bad guy. He wasn't a bad guy. You know, like he was kind of, you know, like, I mean, we're all bad while we're out there, but he wasn't even some asshole, but it was just kind of how it went, you know? So did you have any relationship with your mom or your sister during that time?
Well, just to go back quickly on what you just said, it gave me chills because I really don't think people realize it is such a male dominated game. And when you're a woman and you're small, like unless I'm like carrying a gun, I got a gun during that time. I've never shot a gun in my life, but I was like trying so hard to like, you know, like, I don't know, people are going to rob me and beat me up and fucking take all my hustles, like exactly that. Or you have to like pretend to like a guy that's really gross so he'll give you dope. You know what I mean? All the things. And when I did sex work, it was like, I made the rules. I'm not going to connect with you. I'm not going to kiss you. It's in, out, business, boom, the end. You know what I mean? And of course, that didn't always happen. There was a lot of really fucked up traumatic things that happened to me during that time where I lost power and control in a date or the guy was a total asshole. Yeah, so my mom and my sister, they visited me twice when I lived in that dope house. Once on Christmas, they brought me like a really nice like Patagonia white sweater coat thing, I remember, and like had me open it, and someone stole it like that day. And of course, you know, I don't know why I remember that, but
no, I know why you remember that. Weren't you devastated though because you let them down? Oh my God. I've never shared this ever, not for any reason, but only I think because I just remembered it. My mom and dad, who do not speak, went in together and got me a computer so I could start teaching again, like a PC. And I had, I don't know, 4 months or something. And I relapsed and went to a trap house and someone stole my computer from me that my parents had just given me. And I remember telling my dad it was gone and he thought I sold it. And I didn't sell it. And to this day, I think he probably thinks I sold it. And it's fine. It was 10 years ago. But I was so devastated that it was a gift from my family that someone took. That's probably why you remember. Of course they stole it. That's so annoying.
Yes. And it's also devastating because like for you having 4 months, like it's already so devastating to relapse after you've just been healthy. And so then it's like, God, I fucked this up too. And I lost the computer. Yeah. Because the dope game just sucks everything from you. Anything you love, anything of value, it's just fucking gone. So awful.
It's just
So
gone. Yeah.
yeah.
And they came and saw you one other time too.
My
they
mom
came on
did.
Christmas.
They came on Christmas. And I remember thinking, like, I remember the next morning texting my sister, like, hey, like it was snowing. And I was like, do you want to go take pictures of the sunrise? Because I'm a photographer and I have been, and she just didn't even respond. So it's like, I think I thought like, oh, they're going to let me in again, you know, and we can be buddies. But they did not have the capacity to meet me where I was at. It was too painful for them. You know, and I also had stolen so much from them so many times that like I remember showing up at my mom's house one time and my sister standing in the doorway, like armed guard, like you are not coming in here, you know, like I'm not letting you fuck us over again. So yeah, they visited me a couple times, but my mom would just leave like in tears. Really, she was always really fucking angry, super angry. Like why can't you get clean? Yeah.
Yeah. Have you seen 4 Good Days?
No, I haven't. I wanted to watch it.
So I tried to watch it. Actually, this is kind of crazy where I saw it. I was the speaker at the HA World Convention in Atlanta in 2021, which is so cool.
That's so
they
cool.
flew me there.
I'm on a bid
really
committee
cool.
right now so we can get World HA in Seattle because I do HA.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, I do HA here.
That's so
we can do all that. HA San Diego is like my main thing.
Oh, that's badass.
So yeah, I was if you go on the HA website for 2021, it says Janine C, and that's me. That's my lead. But they flew me there, paid for my hotel room. I'm like, oh my God, I'm like a paid speaker. This is the dream. And on the way back, 4 Good Days was on, you know, that was like the in-flight movie. And I can handle talking about this kind of stuff. And I've been doing it for a long time. The opening scene is her walking barefoot down the street, and it just shows her feet and then her baby feet with her mom when she's like a little kid. I'm like getting emotional right now. And she walks up to her mom's house and she's obviously homeless. And the mom is just like talking to her through a chain. And she's like, please, can I just come inside? Like, I'm on my period. I want to take a shower. And she ends up getting her in the car. And she's like, do you need me to go get tampons? And she's like, no, because she wasn't really on her period. She just like made that up so that she could come, which I've done. I've done that exact thing to my mom. You know what I mean? And so I actually started like sobbing in my plane seat. Like sobbing. And I don't know if it's because I had been speaking at the convention, but I was like, I had to go to the bathroom. And so I only watched like 10 minutes of that movie and I haven't revisited it yet, but it just reminded me of you walking up to so maybe you shouldn't watch it either. Walking up to your mom's house and your sister standing there because her husband, the mom's husband, is like, you know what's going to happen. Everything's going to explode. And the mom is being pretty like aggressive with the girl, like, get out of here, get out of here. But then to her husband, she's like, don't talk about her like she's a bomb. She's my daughter. And it just made me think of my mom because my mom to me was very strict and harsh by the end, but I know it just like broke her. So anyways, that totally just like reminded me of that moment.
Well, and what you just said about the feet of the mom and the daughter's feet together, because now I'm a mom and I have this beautiful daughter, and like to think about that made me almost cry when you said that, because it is so heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It's so heartbreaking for moms. I think once more of our needs are met, like we spend so much of the dope game, like trying not to be sick, trying to find somewhere to sleep, trying to do this hustle that, you know, bleeds into like 3 or 4 days and like, you know, all the things. So finally I have like a roof over my head. I have a way to support myself for the most part. Like a lot of my needs were met that hadn't been met in a long time. And what happened was I totally deteriorated. Like I got so fucking depressed, so skinny, so just like, I don't have any pictures of myself from this time. The only pictures I have are I've gone back through my old Messenger on Facebook and saved photos that I would send tricks. So like my advertising photos. And I'm just like, I mean, I always had like hair and makeup done, but like you can always see like track marks and I'm like so thin. So that's the only photos I have during that time, was putting in the effort to like sell myself as like a person in the sex game. So I'm really fucked up like mentally. And there would just be like days and days and days where I couldn't get out of bed. I would just shoot dope and stay in my bed and like just rot away in there. And what happened was this kid started coming around the trap house and he was pretty annoying. I thought he was kind of cocky. And I knew him. I kind of didn't like him that much. He was really cute, but I was just always like, ugh, here's just some dumb guy that's like bragging, because everyone's just trying to be like, I'm so cool. I sell drugs, We spent a couple days together and we kind of started to be friends, but I went through something pretty traumatic during a trick. So went to a date and there ended up being 2 men instead of 1. And it was like the first time where I really felt like I had no say and no control. And normally I would have just been like, absolutely the not, and left. But both of these men were like my dealer's dealer. So they were like very much like the guy that we all kind of, had done a bunch of prison time. Everyone's kind of scared of him. He's bigger. And I felt like I couldn't do that. They had so much more power than me. So it was a really awful experience. Lasted way longer than I wanted it to. I had no say. I also am not sure to this day if I was drugged or not, because I felt like I lost the ability to like really talk, and I felt very delayed. They just kept feeding me drugs. And maybe it was shock. It could have been a bunch of things. But at that time, I felt like I felt like a really strange feeling. Like it wasn't, my typical, I don't know what that was. Maybe that they slipped GHB in the pipe. I have no idea. But all I know is they dropped me off at like noon the next day at another dope house. So I go into this house and the only person I know is this guy that I kind of am been annoyed of, but he's been hanging out with me at the trap house where I live. So I see him, I beeline directly to him, and I just say, hey, I feel really weird right now. My like vision and my hearing is really strange. I have like a bunch of dope on me and I'm really scared. Like, can you come into the bathroom with me? And like, I want to take a shower. And he was like, yes. And so he came into the bathroom with me. I got in the shower. He got in the shower. He didn't touch me. He was like, we literally just showered, and like he didn't, he wouldn't even like look at me. He was super respectful. And from that moment on, we were inseparable. And that is who I am still with to this day.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so it's been a crazy journey.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
How many years has that been now?
So we've been together like 6.5 years, because we were together and then we got sober almost a year after that whole experience. Maybe it was less time. We got pregnant really quickly. But yeah, so that's who I'm with today.
Oh my gosh. Whoa. What about him, now that you obviously know him really well, what about him made him show up for you in that moment in a way that didn't take advantage of you? Now that you know him as like a man and a person, like, because my husband would do that too. He would fucking super show up for a girl that showed up in a trap house who something had happened to. Skylar would do that too. He would. And I know that from like his background and his family and the way that he was raised. What about, what's it, Ryan?
Yes, Ryan.
What about him made him able to show up for you, even though he was an addict too?
Yeah, like that's the thing. And it feels so silly to say like, oh, he was, every girl gets sober with the guy and they're like, he's special, he's different. But like, we really did connect. Like that's just who he is. Like what you're saying with your husband, like that's just who he is. I mean, to this day, I had so much sexual trauma, and like, he's just been so patient with me, like never viewed me as less than, even due to sex work. He was raised by women and sisters. He just has like a really, like raised with a lot of love, and he's a good, we were not supposed to be in the dope game. Like both of us just knew like we were created for more. Let's get the fuck out of this, So, but we couldn't for a long time.
Gosh.
And after him and I got together, a lot of shit went downhill. Like I no longer had all the money because I didn't really want to do sex work anymore. I fell in love. I lost my room at the trap house. We were always getting robbed. So like, in that sense, like it sucked. And we used really hard for, and went through. Okay. Obviously it was very toxic still, right? Like he's just like a hurting little boy,
But I get it. I get how, and this again is what I was talking about. There's a level of life and addiction that girls like us understand, that people like us understand. Like I was saying, like the guy that locked me in the shed, I'm like, no, but he was like my good buddy. I was very safe there. Right. There's a level where all this stuff can coexist that other people might think sounds insane. And of course it was toxic when you were using together and homeless. Of course it was. But can it be something that has turned into an actual relationship where you guys are together with a child? Yeah, it can be. Like, of course it can be. And everybody blows that off in rehab and stuff, but like it can be, you know? So, I mean, it is obviously.
Right.
So were you guys, did you live in a car? Like, where were you staying?
Oh my God, no. We were like homeless. A lot of, you know, when like you're living on the streets, but it's never like your intention, just like days like bleed into each other and you're not really sleeping outside because we're not really sleeping. We're always just like running around. That time was like a really huge fucking blur. We stayed in a lot of motel rooms. Ryan was always in and out of jail. Dude, it was just bad. It was just really fucking bad. Yeah, so what ended up happening was he was in jail. I'm like fully out on the streets of Everett, which is where in Seattle, it's like a really bad drug area. Living in Motel 6 a lot, but like when I could afford a room, you know, and he was in jail. And I had stabbed my finger with a dirty needle on accident, this finger. And so I had started to get an abscess, and the abscess was not going away. And it got so big and so bad that like I started to, like I was going to lose my finger, basically. Well, before I say that, I should say so when I listened to Christina's story, I was like, Janine's not going to believe me. Like we had so many similarities. Like I also got endocarditis. I also somehow magically didn't die from it. The nurses and doctors did not think I did. They thought I was just drug seeking and sent me home. Like, you know what I mean? And then they called me the next day and was like, you have 2 forms of bacteria in your bloodstream. You need to come back to a hospital immediately. And I was like, F you guys. It's a whole crazy story. But
you didn't go back?
No, I never went back. And I was okay. And to this day,
my gosh,
I have like scarring on my heart. But yeah, I stopped being able to move the left side of my body. There's like a whole story on my TikTok. But yeah, so abscesses were not anything unfamiliar to me, right? Like I knew what to do. So I remember I was really down and out. Like I didn't have a phone. I didn't have, I had a bag maybe of like dirty clothes. And I knew that I was in trouble. Like my hand was bad. And so I walked up to a random guy and just said, can I use your phone? I need to call my mom. And so he was like, yes, gave me his phone. I called my mom. And I was like, I really need to go to a hospital. Like, I don't know, something's really bad's going to happen. I'm going to lose my hand. And so she met me at the hospital. I don't remember much about that. I know that they lanced my finger. I still have a huge scar. But what happened, the whole reason this is a really important story is because this is the day I found out that Ryan and I were pregnant and that I was already 2 months along and I was going to have a baby.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So that was like the beginning of the end. Yeah, that's I used for another month, unfortunately. And, I always share that part of my story just because that's where using took me. I was shooting dope with like my unborn baby in utero. And I've never experienced that level of like incomprehensible demoralization, right? It was no longer about me. It was about this little life that I was killing. So yeah, we got clean after that. And I had my beautiful daughter and she's great. I mean, she's totally fine.
Wow. Can you detox when you're pregnant? So what did the detox look like for you? So you used for another month and then somebody helped get you into detox. What happened?
Yeah. So there was this program that my mom had always been involved with, and they're like not 12-step based. It's just a treatment center. This guy runs it and he really helps like families of addicts kind of like come together. And he's like, whole thing is like, it's a family disease. When we're getting an addict clean, we have to bring everybody in. And so I had been there a couple times. I had like AMA in the middle of the night. I was always AMAing places. And so my mom knew I was pregnant, and obviously every day I was pregnant and using for that month and a half or however long it was either a month and a half or 2 months, because I was 3.5 months pregnant when I finally got clean. But during that whole time, it was always like, I'm going to get clean tomorrow. I'm going to get clean tomorrow. You know what I mean? She picked me up. She met me at a sushi restaurant and she just said, hey, do you want to go to the big house? Like for a meeting, which is that program that she'd been involved with. And I was super tired. I was super run down. I knew I was pregnant. I was just like, yeah, I'll go to the meeting with you. So we went there and we went to the meeting and everyone like surrounded me with love. They fed me a really big meal. And I just remember like sinking into the couch, like my stomach's warm with food. And they were like, so like, you want to stay? Like, you want to check in? And I was just like, yeah, like I do. And so I checked in, and the next morning I woke up so dope sick. And I was like, I want to leave. And I didn't leave. I had to wait a while you can't take Suboxone when you're pregnant. And that's all they had. Yeah, one of the staff members, her name was Shelly. She drove me all the way to a detox for pregnant women that was like 3 hours away. And that drive there was like when I made the decision I was going to keep Estella and I was going to do this thing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I was on Suboxone.
Okay, so I have a bunch of questions.
Okay.
Okay. So what was the scene when they told you were pregnant? Were you sitting on a bed and your mom was standing there? Just what happened?
So the doctor was like a short man and he was really sweet. And I'm pretty sure if I remember him being gay, like very much like he called me honey. And it's like the sweetest man. I don't remember what he looks like, but he cleared the room because there had been so many people in there because I wouldn't let them touch my hand. I was such a mess. I was just like swearing and yelling and screaming. They ended up giving me ketamine so I would chill the out so that I would let them lance my finger. So there was I just remember there was a lot of commotion in the room. It was like my mom's just sitting there like, oh my God, my nut job of a daughter. But so I think because they gave me ketamine, maybe they'd taken my blood. That's why they did the pregnancy test. I don't remember, but I know he cleared the room for like my privacy and like out of respect for me. And that felt so good because no one gives a shit about you when you're so unlovable. And he took my hand and he said, honey, I have to tell you something. You're pregnant. And I just started crying. And he's like, what are you going to do? He's like, are you going to get clean? And I was like, yeah, I am. And he was like, okay. And then, I told my mom and I don't know what she was thinking. She was probably like not thrilled. But so that was the scene.
Right. Where was Ryan?
He was in jail during this time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you ever get arrested during this time or no?
No. I always was with a boyfriend and they would take the boyfriend and I would go. Yeah. So the reason he was in jail was because we got in a high-speed police chase and we had like the entire task force behind us. And so finally when they pulled out, they did the spikes and we had to stop. He like got out of the car and they were like, come out of the car with your, get on the ground. He was like, my girlfriend's pregnant. Take me, just please be so nice. So they like tackled him and then they were so gentle with me. Thank God. They just like handcuffed me and like, they let me go. I was always like, white privilege as fuck. Like I never had to go to jail, which it really is just for that reason. Yeah.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, that's a huge part of it.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever had a guest be in a high-speed chase. I've never had a high-speed chase story on here. I don't think.
We made the newspaper. We made the Everett Herald.
Oh my. Okay. So I have to know the story. What happened?
I can't believe I forgot it. So Ryan and I just revisited this a few months ago and we were like talking about this story and he was like, yeah, that's the day I proposed to you. I'm like, you did? I'm like, I don't even remember that.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
So we were in a stolen vehicle. We had drugs and we were in a parking lot and all of a sudden there was a cop. And so I just went, go. And Ryan just panicked and stepped on the gas and the cop had to jump out of the way. So that he got charged with vehicular assault, even though nothing actually happened. So then, so then I was like, drive into oncoming traffic. They can't chase you. I don't know what the fuck I was thinking. And
is that true?
That's what I thought. It's true in major cities.
That sounds true.
Well, it's not true in Marysville, Washington. I will tell you that much. Everett and Marysville. Because we had like the tribal police behind us. We had like a whole Marysville. They just never gave up, dude. We took them on like all these It was like a 15-minute chase. Yeah, finally we just surrendered.
Oh my gosh.
It was really dumb. I was
And
passenger
they
princess.
let you go?
Yeah.
I can't believe they let you go.
Yeah, I was in the passenger
gosh.
seat. Because Ryan would always be like, drugs are mine, let her go. You know what I mean? Like he always would take the fall for it.
Well, that was nice of him.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Wow. My boyfriend tried, but they didn't buy it.
Really?
Okay, yeah. They would send me to, never. They sent me to jail every time anyways. We always
Wow.
both got arrested. One time I got arrested and he didn't. They let him go and took me.
That's crazy.
But
I don't know.
I know.
Yeah, I did get
especially
lucky.
now I'm hearing your story. I'm like, what the fuck?
No, like I should have been arrested so many goddamn times. Fuck. Yeah.
I can't believe you never got arrested. Okay, so the detox for pregnant women, eventually they did give you Suboxone, but you just had to wait longer. Is that the deal?
They give you Subutex.
Okay.
Not Suboxone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The naloxone is dangerous.
And I didn't know that. Okay. And that's your sobriety date, right? That night at the place?
Yep.
Holy shit.
Yep.
So you go to detox and then you go back. When does he get out, or is he out already at this time?
So I went to that detox for pregnant women and I wanted to go back to the facility I'd been at, because I just had vibed with the staff. It was very much like no rules. There was rules, but it wasn't your conventional rehab. They let me do my last shot of dope in the parking lot because I asked if I could. And they were like, well, you're not going to come in if you can't, right? I'm like, probably not. And so you know what I mean? Like they just bent. I don't think I could have gone to another treatment center that was like traditional. I just was like, I couldn't do it. I needed a place that was a little bit more beaten up, rough around the edges. You know what I mean? And so
that's how my place was. Yeah. Choices was like that too. So did you get well on the way to the detox, or you mean when you first got there with your mom? Because I was wondering if you got well on the way to the detox, because I would maybe have asked.
So when I was sitting in the couch and they gave me that meal, I had dope on me still, and they were like trying to get me to stay the night. So I asked then, I'm like, can I do my last shot, my last speedball? So I did it in the car with my mom. And I just remember it was so sad for her. But so then I woke up in the morning, I was sick.
She saw you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
my mom's watched me shoot up a few times.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I woke up really sick. So there was a 2-day period between when I entered that place and decided to stay and then when I was driven to the detox for pregnant women. So I didn't have any Suboxone during that time. What they did was this is what I mean by unconventional. They gave me somebody else's Suboxone because they knew I was going to fucking leave. And so they were just like, take this, here you go. Don't ask questions, and gave me an 8 milligram sub. And it didn't even hardly do anything. I was still blatantly, so uncomfortable. But yeah, that's how that worked out. Not good, but it worked. I stayed.
It worked. Yeah. So you go back to that facility after the detox. And then how long do you stay there? It's residential?
Yeah. So Ryan followed me 2 weeks later. He came, he was allowed to come. And so then we were allowed to be in the treatment center together. And we weren't in the we weren't in the same room, but separate sides of the house. We were there for 3 months. And then we moved into their outer house, a sober living. And we lived there together. And that's when we were getting ready to have Estella. So we brought Estella home to a sober living. We had half the room set up like a nursery, and the other half was our bedroom. And we brought our baby home to a sober living.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was pretty wild.
Did he start working at that time? Did he just get a regular job? What did he start doing?
He started working. He's a union electrician now, so he's come a long way. He started working at a torque converter place, and I started working at a coffee stand. But for the most part, we were just really involved with the program we were in, getting ready for the baby to come. He relapsed a month before my due date. He relapsed on meth. And so that's his clean date. So his clean date is January 6th, I think. And I stayed with him.
How long did he use for when he relapsed?
I think it was a couple weeks. He just got he was on Suboxone. So he started shooting meth with some guy at work. And it was really awful. So when we had Estella, essentially he was only a month clean, which is pretty wild. Yeah.
When I married my husband, he had 60 days.
Yeah.
Because he relapsed. So forget it. He relapsed right before we got married.
Love
and he
that.
had 60
The
fucking
timing.
days when we got married.
Great timing.
Years. Yeah. And I had like 5 years. I was like, I'm literally marrying a newcomer, bro. I have 5 years. And he had like 64 days as I was walking down the aisle in front of our friends and family. Skylar had 64 days. I was so mad at him. I don't know if you've ever seen me talk about this on TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
He's relapsed a couple of times since then too. He now has 6 months, thank God.
Yay!
But yeah, we've been down this. Yeah, he's doing really well.
Cool.
He's doing great. I'm very proud of him. So yeah, but when we got married, he had 60 days. And I couldn't even tell anyone because anyone would be like, Janine, you can't marry him. He has 60 days. You know what I mean? And so I was like, well, I can't. I mean, obviously I told my sponsor, my mom actually knew, but wow. So is he a 12-step person too? What kind of program did you guys start working during that time?
Yeah. So we were both like really a part of this non-12-step based treatment center. It was all about like, they had their own philosophies. And he wasn't really ever getting better. Nobody thought we should be together. Everyone like really was like, Julia, leave this man. And we fought a lot and blah, blah, blah. So it wasn't until after Estella was born and I started working a program again that he started working a program. We actually broke up for a couple months and I was like done because he wasn't changing. I was like starting to grow and like develop different ways of living and thinking. And he like wasn't, and it was so obvious. And all of a sudden I just kind of like got the ick. I was like, you're not like the man I want to be with. So we broke up and I thought that he was going to get loaded if I broke up with him. And that was another thing is I didn't want to be the only reason he stayed sober. So with the help of like my sponsor, I ended it with him and we co-parented and he didn't get loaded. He actually called a man that night and finally had enough humility to go ask somebody else for help. And that started his whole journey. So today he's been through the book like a million times and he always has a bunch of sponsees and I think that's been like the most powerful example from my family of what recovery can do because they were not a fan of Ryan. And now like my mom literally couldn't love him enough. Like he's such a good guy and such a good dad. And so they were like, what the fuck? Like that was a transformation, dude. So his story is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's the transformative power of recovery. And, for me, 12-step is what worked for me. And you're a 12-step person as well, right? You do the whole meetings and sponsorship and all that stuff. So let me ask you this, because you mentioned, like I said, and I don't want to lose the thread on this from earlier, the tools that you have now for ADHD and depression. Well, actually, first, what do you do now for work? What did your career look like? Do you parent your, right, because you work, right? Because you're on a lunch break. What do you do now?
Yeah. So right now I do like marketing and dispatch for a company of friends that work as plumbers in the program. And it's really nice because I work from home. It's not like my dream job, but then I do social media content and have the photography business. So I do like, we're entering wedding season. So I do like wedding photography
but I want to ask you about that too. You just stumbled onto that massive TikTok video, huh? And then realized you could make some money with the creator fund.
Yes. That's exactly what happened.
Isn't that crazy?
Yes.
Yeah, I know. Me too. I had no luck on any social media platform ever. And like, I never wanted to be an influencer or anything like that, but like, it's kind of cool. It looks cool. But I was like, whatever. I was always trying to do it for my fitness studio and it never fucking really worked. Or even my personal Instagram with fitness is like, whatever. It's nothing. And then I did a couple of things on TikTok in recovery and they really kind of blew up. And I was like, oh, this is really fun. Like, I really like this, and you're growing in a time too, that's almost impossible to grow in. I mean, it's like when I got on, you could really do some damage with your following. Like you could grow pretty quickly. You kind of can't now, but you are anyways. You're doing great, It's
kind of gone like this. I mean, I tell my friends, like I posted for like a year and no videos got traction, but I just kept doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And a lot of it it's because of Marley.
And it's also super hit or miss.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, your friend that's in the videos with you.
Yeah. A lot of it is so like we have to split. Like I just paid her $500 yesterday because we always try and do the math because the videos I make with her, we split 50-50,
Damn, you made $1,000 off a video?
No,
I haven't made shit
I owed her for 2 months. So we've made like 7 videos together.
Okay.
Yeah. I owed her for 2 months.
Okay. But still, like, that's a lot. I've made $98 total since I joined the creator, whatever.
Well, you
for
don't
like
get
6 months. Like, I have not made a lot.
Yeah. Well, it'll say like how much I've made on some videos, but then when I actually get the payout, it's like half of that because there's like a third party, I guess, that we're paying, which is really dumb.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, regardless, keep going with that. It's such a viable way. I'm actually like full on going for it now. I wasn't before. And now I'm like doing YouTube. I'm doing TikTok. I'm like doing all the things. Like I really want to, like actually like go for it now. Cause I interviewed, do you know Abby Thickley? She's on TikTok and Instagram also. She's a recovery content creator. I interviewed her and it was so refreshing because we talk about all the same like algorithm bombing us, this and that. Like she works hard at it too. She's got a content creator schedule. Like it's work. I think I thought it was supposed to be easier. And if it wasn't easy, then I wasn't doing the right thing, but I just think it's really cool that you're doing that too, But what I wanted to ask you was, you mentioned the ADHD tools that you have now that you didn't have then, depression tools that you have now, you've done work in therapy. What are your ADHD tools, for example?
I am a 12-stepper, but I'm also like kind of in a gray area because I'm very much like 12-step is not the end all be all. And there's a lot of like pretty damaging rhetoric as well. And I think I found a really cool place in Heroin Anonymous because we are accepting of Matt, at least in Seattle. And because like people, it's like, I don't give a fuck. You just don't die. Like, please. So I'm like really pro harm reduction. I'm pro therapy. I'm pro like trauma informed care, like all the things. But I didn't discover I had ADHD so when I first got sober, I just went to therapy and raised Estella. That was my whole job. That's all I did. I couldn't handle anything else. Like Ryan worked. I was just like, like every day was just like survival mode, like take care of a baby. Like I didn't know how to do anything, And then I started working. I went to school. So I went to college in sobriety and I flunked out 3 times sober. And I would do really well. I would have A's. Okay. And then I would, what I explained happens to me in my brain. So that's when I've struggled in recovery. Like I really think it's important to share that. I have gone through so many bottoms sober and then pulled myself back up, and really beautiful things have happened too. Like we saved a bunch of money moving in with my mom. So we didn't we bought our townhouse a year ago. Prior to that, we lived in my mom's basement the whole time. So all we did was like save money, saved what were the 2020 checks we got? What were those checks? Remember they paid us?
Like unemployment maybe, or the that COVID thing that check. They called it.
I can't remember what it was called.
The COVID check.
Yeah. So that
there was like a name.
Yes.
I know what you're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah.
So anyways, we were just able to save a bunch of money. But like at the same time, like, I'm dropping out of college. I'm suffering from super debilitating OCD, ADHD. So I spent like a bunch of time kind of like handling one disorder, handling another disorder. And the last like 6 months have been addressing ADHD for the very first time. So like, my tools today are just like, I know that a drug would never make anything better. And I know that there's hope. So like my ADHD looks a lot like executive dysfunction. So like trauma work is really linked to ADHD. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
Because when you have lived in a state of fight or flight for so long, like doing the task, it's like your body just wants to be in shutdown mode. So like, it's hard for me to start tasks. It's hard for me to stay. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, totally. No, it does. It does. This is actually really fascinating. What you said, that completely makes sense, because I interviewed somebody else. Her name is Britt Frank, and she talks about getting stuck, and being stuck is actually like a trauma response and your body shuts down. So that completely makes sense. Everything that you just said, you should read her book too. I interviewed her on the show. So that completely makes sense. So it sounds like some of it is just the awareness of that and knowing that using dope isn't going to help you with anything. So even if you feel frustrated, you just kind of understand what's happening.
Yes, 100%. And dealing with really debilitating depression, there's been so many med changes. I'm a full believer in medication if you need it. I'm finally on like a really good combo of like antidepressant, mood stabilizer. Yeah, just like anything I possibly could to become better, I grabbed onto this time. It wasn't about doing it right. It was just about staying sober so I could be a mom and raise Estella.
How did you learn to be a mom? Did your mom help you? Did you how did that's a whole thing, or did you just kind of figure it out as you went along?
No, totally. Literally women in this program have raised me and held my hand through and through. Through and through. Well, plus we have access to so much information today. So I was always learning. But yeah, a lot of it did come naturally, I think. I think it does. It's really crazy what motherhood, like what you know how to do. But my mom definitely helped, especially in like the first few months. Yeah.
That's cool.
But what I struggled with right away was like super depression because I was less than a year clean when I had her. And you have a beautiful baby that looks at you and you know that you are this baby's entire world. And I still think I'm a piece of shit. And so it's like that, it's like your kid is just a mirror, right? And everything that I don't like about myself, everything that I have yet to heal is just so obvious because I know that she's going to absorb me. So I have to be fixing me. You know what I mean? It's really intense. But so yeah, she's been the catalyst for all the change in my life, for sure. And she's the coolest kid I know. She's so fucking cool. So smart, so bright. She's really funny. You would love her. She's so fun. So, yeah.
I've seen her on some of your videos. She's 3 now or 4,
she's 5.
3.5?
She's 5.
Oh, she's 5. Oh, okay. I was thinking because like if you had her, oh, right. Because you were, okay. So yeah, she's 5.
I know. The math is difficult.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
So I've seen you working out a little bit too on TikTok. What does your fitness stuff look like? Because I've seen you talk about that and it looks like you're working out like at your house. What type of fitness do you do and where does that play into your recovery?
Yeah, so that is also another tool for ADHD. Like it really is like a bunch of dopamine, you know, especially if I can do it in the morning, but I have like a Peloton or I just have weights and I just do YouTube workouts, bro. Like I just started getting back into working out in the last 6 months. I know, like I've watched all of your workout videos and like all the things you post.
You have?
Yeah, I've taken all the tips. So it's really cool.
I'll send you some spin classes.
Okay, cool.
Do you have the Peloton bike or just the app?
No, I have the bike.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We spoke about this. Okay, I'm going to send you some of my spin classes because I still have my whole library of on-demand classes. I'll email you some and you
cool.
can do them.
Hell yeah.
Hopefully you like them.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
I love teaching spin. It's my favorite thing on earth.
I bet you're such a fun teacher too and just like really present and animated and yeah, you would be a cool teacher.
I try. A lot of pre-workout goes into it, you know. Like bring the energy and the dopamine, you know. So sometimes I ask this of people that do 12-step. What is your favorite step if you have one and why?
So the step that has consistently brought me the most growth and peace is step 10 and step 12. And I say that because I never took those 2 steps seriously any other time I was sober. I never sponsored women and I never did like a continual check-in with myself at night. And I don't do it perfectly now. I've had way long periods where I did it really rigidly and where I didn't. But yeah, like if I do my 10 step at night, and I connect with like oh my God, I've had this really funky narrative all day or this fear, or I'm like, actually, I was kind of jealous of that person and it felt really icky. And then I reacted that way. I'm not even aware of it until I'm like putting pen to paper at night, you know, that step has fucking keeps me just like the right level of like sane. And then sponsoring women, which I didn't even do until, I don't think I got my first sponsee until I was like 3 or 4 years sober. That's been the coolest. Yeah, I've never even taken a woman through inventory. My sponsee is about to read her 4-step to me on Sunday. So I've never, I feel like no one stays sober, but that'll be the first time I've like, I've like read inventory with someone. So I'm excited.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. Yeah. My sponsor has 11 years. I have 9 and I'm the only person that's gone through all 12 with her.
Right.
In 11 years.
Dude,
and she sponsors a lot.
That makes me feel better.
Like,
that makes me feel better.
Rare.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's kind of, she hasn't had anybody other than me go through it. And I haven't anybody go all the way to 12. I think I had somebody get all the way through like 6 or 7 with me. Yeah. Is your 10th step like a worksheet or do you write something out? Or is it like a pre-made worksheet?
It's it's like on 86 through 88 where it just says like, where were we selfish, resentful, dishonest. But I also use this app lately that's like called the 12-step toolkit. And they make it so easy because you just go in. There's like the option for a spot check inventory, a nightly inventory, and then it just asks you one by one.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I can just type it up like as I'm laying in bed.
What's it called? I'll put a link. Oh, that's really cool. Because my husband has been doing a 10th step every night for the first time since I've known him for the past few months.
Oh, that's cool.
And I don't. And it's obviously really working for him. But what's the app called?
Okay, so I don't actually know the name. I think it's called Recovery Toolkit. It looks like that. The little circle with the thing.
It's kind of pixelated, so I can't really see it. But send it to me, text it to me, so that I can add it in the show notes, because that's really cool.
It is cool because it's like I don't have to get out a pencil and a journal. I can just type it. It's easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I always forget and like not have that shit next to me. Okay, so last question, and then I'm going to let you go. This was amazing. So when you look back on all the things that happened, because I was so ashamed of being an addict for so long. And now I think the best parts of me came from my addiction and subsequent recovery. Do you feel that way? Do you feel like it opened up a side of your life that maybe you wouldn't have had? Where are you at with that whole thing?
I've pondered this since I heard you say that a couple times. I do still live with a lot of regret, I think. It's tied into like just how many people I let down and how many people I hurt, and like just having to outgrow the label of like the fuck up has been really hard for me. And so I think it's hard sometimes for me to like look back and be like, I'm grateful for all of it. But obviously I would not be anywhere near the woman I am today with the level of wisdom I have if I hadn't gone through as much hell as I've been through. But yeah, sometimes I just feel like, man, why did I have to fuck up for that long? You know what I mean? Like I couldn't have figured it out a little sooner. So I don't know if I'm there yet. Maybe I hope I can be there. Maybe I can be healed one day fully.
But healing looks different to a lot of different people, right? And like, obviously you're healed. You've got your daughter and you're in your relationship. And so like that particular mindset not be where you land, but it might look like something else, you know? But I'm actually really glad that you just said that and you were honest about that, because I don't think I've had a guest yet say that. Actually, that's not my friend Tommy, who robbed a bank and went to prison and got out. I was talking to him and I interviewed him and I asked that, and he just looked at me and he was like, Janine, I love your show. I do. I like your show and I like you. But I don't know that I'm grateful. It was really funny how he said it. And I was like, okay, that's fair. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's fair, you know? But it's so beautiful to see you thriving. And I'm so glad that I reached out and asked for you to interview. Where can everybody find all your social media?
Yeah, so my TikTok is JulesZB. It's JulSeybee. And I pretty much only do TikTok. I know we should like do other platforms, but that's where I'm at. So yeah.
It's a bitch trying to do all the things. I have started doing but I only was able to start doing YouTube because I have the podcast and I have them filmed. And now I have started, you know, I put my TikToks on YouTube as shorts now. I do that because I'm worried TikTok might actually get banned. I mean, it's looking like that's a real possibility.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like, well, man, you know, that's the only platform I ever had any luck with.
Right. I know.
But anyways, but at the same time, a lot of people are saying it won't. It would be such a violation of free speech and the First Amendment that there's just like no way. And I'm hoping that's true.
I've thought about it and I'm like, okay, if it gets banned, it will be like a short mourning period. And then it'll be like, well, that was fun. And then I could like focus more on everything else in my life, because it does like, it's such a time suck. You know, that I'm almost like,
totally.
Some part of me is almost like, take it away from me. I spend so much time on TikTok.
Yeah.
I'm like, I would be sad just because it's been cool to be successful a little bit on there, but I also like never, you know, intended that to happen. So I just
that's how I feel too. I'm like, it's been cool to be kind of successful.
Yeah.
In
like,
some platform, you know?
Yeah.
I know. Like, I'm TikTok famous, sort of.
Sort of. Yeah. But that's how I feel too.
Yeah, sort of. Well, thank you so much. I'm so glad that we got to connect.
Yeah, me too.
And that people got to hear your story. Is there anything that you feel like that we didn't touch on that you would want to say, or that you would want someone to hear?
I don't know why I feel like saying this, but I just today, you know, before I went on the podcast, I was feeling kind of nervous. So like I had one of my friends in recovery, like I video called her and she gave me such a good pep talk that she was like crying at the end of it, made me cry, just trying to pump me up. And then like my other best friend, like they're all women that were all raising babies together in recovery. That kind of love that like I've wanted my whole life, and that level of like just people that genuinely care about you, that is so much better than any amount of heroin ever was. You know what I mean? So I just like can't even explain how good that feels to be like flooded with that level of human connection, because that's what we are seeking really, is just that level of love. So I don't know. I just think that if you're listening to this and you feel like, oh my God, I've never fucking experienced that, that's so dumb, just know that it's a possibility. So
Yeah. Oh no, I love that. I felt that way in HA. I didn't feel that way necessarily in NA, but I definitely did at HA and at my fitness studio that I owned.
I love that. I love that.
So yeah, it was amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time. I had a great time chatting with you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.